Good afternoon, everyone. First and foremost, I want to thank my Lord Jesus Christ for everything He has done. Chaplain McGraw, thank you for the prayer and being here tonight. Wherever it is. Thanks, Chaplain. Colonel Lewis, it's been an honor to serve under your leadership 2 separate times over my career. Lieutenant Colonel Muncie, Major Derrick, Sergeant Major Nunez, Sergeant Major Olmstead, my Navy psychologists, my Navy medical officers and corpsmen, company commanders, senior enlisted, staff and Marines of MWSS 371. Valerie, Melody, and Michael, Marines, family and neighbors, friends, and all the people who've been part of this journey, thank you for being here today. For those of you who I've served shoulder to shoulder with in the most austere places or trained with, CONUS or overseas, Semper Fi brothers and sisters. For those of you who took time off work, traveled short or long distances, and blocked off time during the busyness of life, it means more than I can express to stand here after 20 years in the United States Marine Corps, surrounded by the people who made this career possible and have been important parts of the story. For those unable to attend who reached out, I officially say thank you. So as you guessed, I was born right here in Yuma, Arizona, down the street from the hospital with the midwife in a small office on July 28, 1988. I'm pretty sure my parents didn't have health insurance back then. They did. I grew up out in North Foothills on an unimproved street of deserts and 10 acres of washes on a street which was a cul-de-sac called Mountain Drive. So who's hiked up Telegraph Pass? Who knows where Telegraph Pass is? All right, so if you're at the top of Telegraph Pass, just turn your head to the right, and you can see my house a ways off in the distance. I grew up outside playing, hearing and seeing helicopters and jets flying over our yard year-round. I would later realize this was WTI and the Marines of NCAS Yuma doing their thing. Like a lot of young Marines, I joined right out of high school. Matter of fact, I graduated high school early. As a senior at Yuma High, home of the criminals, I had 7 classes to get all the credits and graduate in December, and go to boot camp in January. You see, I was already glutton for punishment. This was 5 years after 9/11. I felt compelled to serve. In middle school, the night of 9/11, I remember turning from the TV in the living room and telling my mom and dad that I was going to be a Marine when I got older. I was convinced that what was right for my generation of young people. You see, my grandfather on my mom's side fixed U.S. bombers and Army Air Corps during World War II. And I recall the story he told me about going up in a bomber on a mission and taking flak from German AA guns. I was probably in 5th grade when I heard that story. My other grandfather on my dad's side survived 6 years in Auschwitz during the Holocaust. He later served in the Israeli army during wartime in the 50s. I remember him telling my dad to tell me that being in the military was a dog's life. Boy, was he right, but I wasn't swayed. They both passed away years before I ever joined, but I remember them and always drew strength from their stories I heard about them from others. So funny story. My parents didn't want me to join, but instead go to college first, and if I did join, go the officer route. However, after 4 meetings with the recruiters and 3 failed attempts with getting my parents to sign parental consent, my recruiters, one of whom may be here, Charles Dine here? Yeah, something came up. It's okay. All right, well, Charlie Dine, Chiwo retired, Daryl J. Yanis, Gunny retired, Eugenio Mejia, Staff Sergeant retired, convinced them to sign for me to join the Marine Corps Delayed Entry Program. As a parent now, I can understand my mom and dad's concern and apprehension. No one wants to see their kids or those they care about go into harm's way. And so, I admire my parents and the protective nature of me during those early years of my career. However, there was a compromise. They signed for me to go in the Marine Corps Reserves and go to college at ASU. My first assignment was 60th Bulk Fuel in Phoenix, Arizona. I recall when my recruiter said I was going to be a bulk fuel specialist in the reserves. I said, whoa, hang on. Will I still get to shoot machine guns and throw hand grenades? He said, all Marines, regardless of job field, get to train with those weapons. That was good enough for me, and off I went. And he didn't lie. I did get to throw a hand grenade and shoot machine guns. So you're probably thinking, wait a minute, he was a weekend warrior, a reservist? How did he have a 20-year active duty career? What am I missing? Well, I'm glad you asked. After all my training was completed and I returned home, I got into disagreement with my dad. I had just turned 18, I was back in town, I had picked out my dorm room at ASU, picked my classes, and was a few weeks from moving up to Phoenix and starting my Marine college career and independent life. But I was missing something. Some of you may remember what that was. So what does every 18-year-old private first class need? A sports car. I'll save you the long story about that car being a 1985 Chevrolet Camaro IROC Z28, buying it from a snowbird for $3,000 with my money from boot camp and training, or that it was a 5-speed manual, or the fact that my dad was going to help pay for my college, or that I didn't know how to drive a stick at that time, or that my dad wanted me to focus on school and use public transportation, or that if I didn't take back the car, then he would not help me pay for the majority of my tuition and board. Needless to say, the next day I drove that car on frontage road, stalling at most of the red lights, grinding the clutch, and straining the transmission straight to the recruiting office. They said, hey, there's a war going on, so if you want active duty, we can work with us a little bit, and we'll get you out of here. About 6 months and a brand new clutch later, I drove that Camaro out to Camp Pendleton and started my active duty career at 7th ESB. I had many intense NCOs whose job was to prepare us for the rigors of combat deployment, and they did it well. Corporal Raymond Norman, aka Stormin' Norman, from the backwoods of New Jersey, an all-state wrestler, ran sub-18-minute 3-mile. Well, this guy was harder than woodpecker lips, and he impacted me early on. In February 2008, I deployed to Iraq with a security platoon serving as a turret gunner. That deployment taught me what responsibility and brotherhood really means, not just for the mission, but for the Marines to your left and right. I'd like to acknowledge those Marines who were deployed there and are present tonight at the ceremony. If you could stand up for a round of applause. You all hear me back? Is it echoing? Good? Okay. In 2010, as a corporal, I deployed to Afghanistan in Combat Logistics Battalion 1, served as a fuel site in CIC at Firebase Fiddler's Green, drove a fuel truck to resupply combat outposts, flew in CH-53s to deliver fuel to austere locations, and flooded when the Helmand River flooded. As mentioned, I served in the Battle of Marja. I'd also like to acknowledge any Marines who were deployed here present to Afghanistan during that time. Stand up, please. Gunny P, that's you. You were in Marja. A round of applause, please. Those months tested every skill I had and further taught me the value of preparing your Marines for combat and hard environments. And that as an NCO, you have a great responsibility to the Marines under your charge and to your commander. After coming back from deployment, I took a road trip through the Southwest through Texas and met up with a few buddies from that deployment, some of whom may be here tonight. Peter Trevino, where are you at? It was his birthday yesterday. We'll touch bases later. Both these guys, Pete, Chris Balderas, Chris not here, they both showed me the sights and took me to Whataburger for the first time, amongst other places. And that trip gave me some clarity. I re-enlisted after that trip and transferred to a non-deployable base unit still aboard Camp Pendleton. Several months after arriving, we received a new staff NCO. He looked familiar. Come to find out from conversations, He was a drill instructor in my company when I was a recruit in Delta Company back in 2006. The memories started trickling back. Several years later, he was a staff NCO with the unit that replaced us in Iraq. I had no idea we'd crossed paths several times already. Then, Gunnery Sergeant Juan Escalante, man, this guy walked the walk and talked the talk. He had a booming voice and command presence, and you knew when he entered the room. For those of you who don't know him, think about Vin Diesel in his prime. Fast and Furious 1 and 2, or the Chronicles of Riddick. Only Juan was a little taller, he was Mexican, he had bucko swagger. I say all that because he could have easily done bare minimum at this unit. His immediate higher-ups was a civilian GS worker, and the nature of the work was away from the flagpole. It was a small shop with 5 or 6 Marines and a few civilian fuel truck drivers. The work was repetitive, monotonous, and frankly boring, but not for Gunnery Sergeant Escalante. He would lead us in PT runs in the morning through the hills of the 22 area across from the air station at Camp Pendleton. We spent a lot of miles in those hills. He would even force me to the gym with him at Chow to push me harder. You see, we both had non-judicial punishments on our records. We both got in trouble in our careers. And I remember him telling me that in order to bounce back and have a successful career, I needed to perform harder than the Marine next to me that did not have any adversity in order to stay competitive and complete a career. Therefore, he held me accountable and pushed me to be better. He even pumped me into the Heartbreak Ridge Half Marathon at Las Polgas in Camp Pendleton. That was on September 11, 2011. And he beat me by 10 minutes to add insult to injury. Juan was there when I was voluntold for recruiting duty. He was there when I got promoted to sergeant. I remember him saying, AJ, they got you, man. You got hissed. What are you going to do? What about your new girlfriend and her girls? That's when I started saying, Daddy, that was a horrible impression. I'm sorry. That's when I started saying, Semper Fidelis, we go where they tell us. It was also the location. So I went to Muskegon, Michigan, and recruited for 36 months. And for those of you that don't know where it is, this is where it is. So people in Michigan tell where they're from their hand. They point to their hand. So it's right here. Recruiting duty was also location I was saved and gave my life to Jesus Christ. It was one cold night in February of 2013 that I accepted him into my heart and first felt the Holy Spirit. My relationship with my new brother-in-law, Jose Diaz, began to grow. I'd often call him back from California, asking for advice as a new believer, newly married to his older sister, and he always answered the phone call. It was a difficult chapter, but he made himself available. Thank you, brother. I'd also call or message by this time First Sergeant Escalante, and he would encourage me to keep pushing and get through it. By the grace of God, I ended recruiting duty successfully. More than a decade later, I've stayed in some form of contact with most of the heroes I had the opportunity to help launch into the Marine Corps adult life. I see their success and accomplishment, and it's a great feeling. So Marines, if you're on the fence about going to recruiting duty, just think, if I can do it, you can do it. Take the hard choice. Another lesson that was pounded into my head on recruiter duty was don't confuse efforts with results. In the summer of 2015, I returned to Camp Pendleton back to 7th ESP for a second time. About 9 months later, Melanie, you were born. You've always been a joy in my life and everyone who knows you. I love you, Melanie. I'm looking at you. I'm looking at you. I'm not you. In 2016, then First Sergeant Escalante retired from the Marine Corps after 20 years of honorable service. Melanie was a new baby, so I couldn't make Juan's retirement ceremony, but I was able to pop in to give him a gift, shake his hand, and take a picture. And I'm extremely glad that I did that. Fast forward a year or so later, and I had a chance to work at the battalion legal section, which is where I came to work for then Major Kevin Lewis. I recall admiring his bluntness, wit, and fairness he demonstrated as a leader. One quote that stuck with me from him after all these years was, "When the team wins, it's the player's fault. When the team loses, it's the coach's fault." That sunk in for me and made me look at leadership and officers with a whole new perspective from that point on. In the summer of 2018, I received orders to Okinawa, Japan. 7 Fidelis was over to tell us. Melody, you were just 3 years old. It was a hard decision, but I had to go. I had been stateside 5 years at this point. It was going to be a 3-year tour if the whole family went, but the Marine Corps modified it to 2-year orders and had to go alone. Again, it was a difficult choice. But at that time, if I wanted to stay in the service and keep pushing, I had to go overseas. I couldn't make up an excuse and say, my family doesn't want to come with me, so I can't go. Remember, the Marine Corps is a warfighting organization and force of readiness. Rapid deployments and crisis response come with the title. In Okinawa, I instantly got plugged in with the base chaplain in the hospitality house off base through a Christian ministry group called Cadence International. It's where I met and was discipled by Darrow and Vicky Frazier, and then some brothers in Christ, as well as Brother Lawrence. About 5 months later, I found myself going through another difficult time in my career. It was the dissolution of my marriage and a custody case. It was only through the love of Jesus Christ and his community that he placed around me, I came through it with some of my sanity and dignity. To name a few of the people who stepped up, one was Chaplain Anthony Swanto, who Chaplain McGraw knows, so give him a shout out for me, please. The Christian community and my brothers and sisters back stateside were available. Thank you guys. Also, First Sergeant Escalante would message me and check in for me from time to time. I reverted back to the lessons I learned on recruiting duty. Don't confuse efforts with results. I strive to train and mentor the Marines under my charge. Several of you are here this evening. Dustin Roberts, where are you? I gave you and your peers the best I could while stationed overseas, given my circumstances. Melody, you also became a huge motivation during this chapter of my career. Thank God for video chat. We would WhatsApp video chat just about daily. Because of the time zone difference, my lunchtime was your bedtime. I'm not sure if you remember me playing with you over the phone with puppets or stuffed animals, but I did. You helped me stay focused and grounded during the time away, and your aunt and uncle always made space for me in their home when I took them to visit with you. Thank you again, Jose. Francis. After 24 months in Okinawa, I tried getting orders back to Southern California, and there weren't any openings for a staff sergeant, so I tried Arizona. Believe it or not, Emo was full. But my former occupational field specialist, Master Douglas Salazar, retired, called me at what must have been 2 a.m. my time and told me there was a spot at Luke Air Force Base, Glendale, Arizona for I&I for inspector instructor duty. I was sold. I remember Peter Trevino, who drove out from San Diego to pick me up at Sky Harbor Airport when I finally returned to stateside. He then took me to my rental house with Brian Mary and a few others helped me lock on. Then he drove me up to Oceanside to my brother-in-law's house to let me borrow their Nissan Armada. I wasn't poor or homeless anymore. Thank you guys. It made a huge difference. I also plugged in with Bill and Diane Sperry, the Cadence missionaries who serve the airmen and service members stationed at Luke Air Force Base. They're here tonight. Thank you guys. And made new community with the Bassetts, Dawn and Val. Dawn, who officiated my wedding. Looking at you. With Valerie, my wedding with Valerie, gotta clarify. Levi and Rachel, and made friends with Carrie and Josh, and so many more. I Duty is where I met and worked with many of you here again. Brian Berry, Michael Martinez, our narrator, Dakota Glick, Octavio Ortiz, my former squad leader, Brianna. And David Alston, and who used to be my old gym partner. We did a lot of important work. First and foremost, we did funeral details for Marines who passed away in the greater Phoenix and Flagstaff area, CACO or casualty notifications, Toys for Tots, and training the Reserve Marines of Phoenix, Arizona for 3 summer ATs. I made many lifelong friendships while stationed at Mood, and I'm forever grateful. If you're still paying attention, 14 years later, I was back at the reserve unit I left when I was the reserve unit that I left. Only this time on the active duty staff side. It was also here that then Lieutenant Colonel Lewis was our battalion commander up at 6CSB headquarters in Portland, Oregon. It was great serving under his leadership once again, and I'm truly grateful for your guidance. I Duty was also where I met Valerie, my wife, aka Hot Stuff, aka Melody's bonus mom, aka Michael's mommy, aka Bougie Doll, aka World Traveler Extraordinaire, but best of all, my secret weapon. I finally experienced what the Bible described in Proverbs 30:10 as, who can find a virtuous woman, for her price is far above rubies. Our Lord is a God of second chances and redemption, and Valerie, you are that and so much more for me. Fast forward to my last duty station. We moved to Yuma in the summer of 2023 with MWSS 371 in St. Charles. We knew it would be busy, so I encouraged Valerie to make some friends. Lo and behold, she actually made some really good ones here. Leticia and Adam, Lauren and Tyler, the Garretts, Turners, our neighbors Matt and Jessica, Joe and Alondra, Hugo and Tony, and so many more. I can't forget my mother and father-in-law, Kathy and John Maddox. They sold their house in Goodyear, Arizona to buy one here to be closer to us. And we actually love that. A lot of people don't get along with their in-laws. I love them. The best. We have a great relationship with them. Kathy is a retired Washington, D.C. ICU nurse, and John is a retired firefighter of 30 years with Prince William County in Virginia. We always feel at ease when they watch the grandkids for date night. Since I decided to put in for my retirement, John has taken me under his wing and has been training me on how to retire well. By keeping a routine and purpose. I see how they stay active by facilitating premarital counseling at their church, volunteering, maintaining good quality relationships with their adult children and their friends. So thank you guys, both of you. We love you. We hit the ground running. Back to Sand Shark Nation. Okay, we're wrapping it up. We hit the ground running. Fuel and fart support for the flying squadrons, TADs, ranges, shoots, exercises. The first 10 months were a blur. My former platoon and company commanders, Major Jarrett, Lieutenant Gomez, and those not here because they deployed or getting ready to deploy. Hey, you guys manage the madness at your respective levels, and we appreciate that, and we thrive because of that, because of you. Thank you to my commanders who are here today, fellow commanders. I'm privileged to have had some great commanders on my way out. Captain Novak, ma'am, you're a rock star and as a leader. And I predict you'll be battalion or squad one commander in the not too distant future. I know you'll knock it out of the park when you PCS and MCR in San Diego as this year's commander. In 2024, I went on my last deployment to the Horn of Africa with a dozen Marines from this squadron. It was the icing on the cake for me. We supported MV-22 Osprey, the KC-130J Squadron Hunt Field Support. It was phenomenal to see the young Marines, NCOs, and officers hungry, mastering their craft, and accomplishing their mission. Lieutenant McCormick, you were a rock star too back then. It was good to work with you. I'd like to acknowledge at this point those Marines who deployed there to the Horn of Africa with me by y'all standing in a round of applause. While on deployment, I remember seeing a Facebook message back in the States that my longtime mentor, Juan Escalante, was sick and at the hospital. I messaged him and said prayers to acknowledge them, and he acknowledged the messages too. Shortly after what seemed like only a few weeks, his wife had posted that he had passed away. It was a huge shock for me. I wasn't able to attend his memorial and give my condolences and honor him and his loved ones because I was deployed. But I've chosen today to do that. His widow Danielle and daughter Amelia are our special guests this evening. Danielle, Juan was an impactful Marine and mentor throughout my career. I wouldn't be standing here, retired as a gunny today, if it wasn't for how he challenged me back then, when I was a 22-year-old knuckleheaded punk. Amelia, the last time I saw your dad in person, you were a baby. Your father was a big brother and meant so much. He could be extremely funny too. Even if you were in trouble, things were serious. He was my big brother, and that makes you my newest niece. And you and your aunt have cousins. Yep. So I wanted to present you both with a small gift. The bear is wearing a service uniform because your daddy was a drill instructor. Juan, this one's for you. You made so much impact in my career, and I pass that on. Little Michael was born in October 2024, towards the end of that deployment. Melody, you were a trooper, the best big sister he could ask for. I know things got tough, and Valerie, words can't describe how proud I am of you for gritting through the pregnancy and deployment. But don't worry, I'm not going anywhere for this next deployment. Or as you were, for this next pregnancy. She's pregnant, I'm not going anywhere. It's been a whirlwind, but I'm grateful to be hanging out my uniform and boots in such an esteemed tactical squadron. We won AGS Marine Wing Support Squadron of the Year 2 years in a row. It's because of the dedication of those Marines, staff NCOs, and officer of the squadron. I'd like to acknowledge the Marines who have ever or are currently a part of 371 by standing up and a round of applause. If you're a sand shark, stand up. In conclusion, during this next chapter, I plan on taking a sabbatical for at least a year to let the dust settle, decompress, and step it up as a stay-at-home dad, supporting Valerie's career and becoming a traveling house spouse. Traveling house spouse, baby. And experience how Jesus Christ will use me to serve his kingdom in the years ahead. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, please rise for the playing of Anchors Away and the parade ceremony. Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes today's retirement ceremony. Please take your seats for the presentation of Old Glory and the Watch. It is a universal custom to display the flag of the United States of America from sunrise to sunset on buildings and on stationary flagstaffs in the open. The national anthem is flown daily at Marine Corps Air Station, Yuma. The United States flag accompanying this certificate was raised and lowered from a flagpole mounted to the battleship USS Arizona at Pearl Harbor on 7 December 2024. Flown over Marine Corps Air Station Yuma, Arizona in a F-35 Bravo aircraft 08 by Major Adam Watches on 4 November 2025, and flown in an H-1 Zulu helicopter by Major Gregory Moore on 27 March 2026 in honor of your dedicated service to the United States Marine Corps. I am the flag of the United States of America. My name is Old Glory. I fly atop the world's tallest buildings. I stand watch in America's halls of justice. I stand guard majestically over great institutions of learning. I stand guard with the greatest military power in the world. Look up and see me. I stand for peace, honor, truth, and justice. I stand for freedom. I am confident, I am arrogant, I am proud. When I am flown with my fellow banners, my head is a little higher, my colors a little truer. I bow to no one. I am recognized all over the world. I am worshipped. I am saluted. I am loved. I am feared. I have fought in every battle of every war for more than 200 years. Gettysburg, Shiloh, Appomattox, San Juan Hill, the trenches of France, the Argonne Forest, Anzio, Rome, the beaches of Normandy, Guam, Okinawa, Japan, Korea, Vietnam, Iraq, and Afghanistan. I was there. I led my soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines. I followed them and watched over them. They loved me. I was on a small hill in Iwo Jima. I was dirty, battle-worn, and tired, but my Marines and sailors cheered me on, and I was proud. I have been burned, torn, and trampled on in the streets of countries that I have helped set free. It does not hurt, for I am invincible. I have been soiled, burned, torn, and trampled on the streets of my own country. And when it is by those I have served and battled with, it hurts. But I shall overcome, for I am strong. I have slipped the bonds of earth and stood watch over the uncharted frontiers of space from my vantage point on the moon. I have been a silent witness to all of America's finest hours, but my mightiest hours are yet to come. When I am torn in strips to be used as bandages for my wounded comrades on the fields of battle, when I fly at half-mast to honor my Marines and sailors, and when I lie in the trembling arms of a grieving mother at the graveside of her fallen son or daughter, I am proud. My name is Old Glory. Long may I wave. Dear God, long may I wave.
Years, this Marine has stood the watch. While many of us laid about on our bunks at night, his Marine stood the watch. While some of us were in school learning our trade, his Marine stood the watch. And yes, even before some of us were born, his Marine stood the watch. In those years when the storm clouds of war were seen brewing in the horizon of history, his Marine stood the watch. Many times you could cast an eye ashore and see his family standing there often. Needing guidance, he headed to hell, but he knew that he must stay because he had the watch. For 20 years, he stood watch so that our fellow countrymen could sleep soundly, in safety, knowing that the Marine stood the watch. Today we're here to say the watch stands relieved. Relieved by those you have led, guided, recruited, and trained. Better Sergeant Eisenberg, you're relieved. We have to watch.
Ladies and gentlemen, please join us in congratulating Gunnery Sergeant Eisenberg and family on his retirement. Famous Dave's barbecues being provided by the Eisenberg family. Adult beverages and soft drinks are available at the bar. Thank you.